is Fabrizio inking. And I am inking Horace H. Hoover. I'm going to have a sip of coffee first, and then I will get to it. Hope everybody is having a good Monday evening. Mondays seem to fly by. Alrighty, so I'm actually getting pretty... I don't know if this is like the home stretch of Horace H. Hoover, issue number 4, but this is page 29? Page 29 out of 38. So it's really towards the very last chunk of the book. I don't know if there's going to be any spoilers. Don't look too hard. Just squint at the line work, but don't pay attention to what's actually going on. If you are new to me or the channel, I have a comic book called Horace H. Hoover. Issues 1 through 3 are currently available on HoraceHoover.com. It is an occult mystery pulp adventure, I like to call it. So it's about an investigator, something like the 1920s, 30s. He's got a couple of buddies. They investigate supernatural, paranormal type stuff, which takes him to some pretty crazy stuff. It's fun. Creative Faye, hey, how's it going? Audio a bit robotic. Okay, I will look into it. That's strange, huh? Alright, I will... Ready? External headphones. What about now? Is it still robotic? Could be my Wi-Fi. I don't know. I can just not talk. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. I like the heads up because I have no idea, obviously. Occasionally, my neighbors will hear me talking, and they will throw rocks at my window to let me know my mic isn't working properly. Where do I live? Have you ever heard of Lord of the Flies? Anyway, all right. So let's get started. Like I said, I'm on the home stretch of this book, and, you know, you get kind of antsy at the end. You just want to finish it. But it's not like you just got a bunch of homework and you want to finish it. It very much is like you want to share it. You want to get it in people's hands. So let me put some music on. So I am going on a 10-trip week next week, so that definitely a little bit of a ding in the progress, but I'll be back and I'll be able to finish this up pretty quickly, I think. I have been good, Creative Faye. How about you? Summer has been pretty good. I actually did 16 watercolors, and that was pretty fun. Watercolor was, I don't want to say my main medium of choice, but it's something I used to do a lot of. And I kind of got away from it because of the comic book. I haven't done watercolors. And my niece is getting married, and she wanted some paintings for her wedding. So I'm like, oh, it'll be fun. So there were 16 watercolor paintings. They were sort of like city scenes or houses, like locations. But I'll tell you what, it really made me rethink coloring. You know, I'm on the computer a lot,
And, doing traditional pencils and inks is a nice break from being on the computer. But after doing these watercolor paintings, I have decided that I can't change, my coloring for issue 4 or 5. It's kind of set in stone. I think if I deviated too much, it would be too abrupt, and it would take you right out of the story. But after that, I think I'm only going to be coloring in watercolor. So, whether that's a book I'm doing or a commission or anything like that, in order to get colors for me, I think it's going to be watercolor. Which I think is good. It'll definitely add a stylistic identifier to my work if it's not already easily identifiable. I have no idea if it is. Fabrizio, he draws like those old people used to back in the day. Do I have a conch? Nope. Lord of the Flies is a good book. Not as good as Horace H. Hoover. Thank you. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate the lie in saying that Horace H. Hoover is better than Lord of the Flies. It's funny because reading Lord of the Flies when you're a youngin', it's kind of a big deal. Kind of violent. Kind of gives you a glimpse into, a society without rules and, what could potentially happen. I don't think you appreciate it fully until you're older, though. So, now I haven't read that since I was a kid, but man, I bet if I reread it today, I'd have different thoughts. Hey, John, how's it going? John from John's Long Box. Pisces Rising Press. Ever work in gouache? I have. I really love gouache. I kind of bounced back and forth between watercolor and gouache, actually. I did some portraits. I'm sure they're on my Instagram. Even though nobody goes to my Instagram, that's probably I think they're on there. But they would be pretty old at this point. Yeah, I like gouache. I was actually considering working in some gouache on top of the watercolor, but they ended up turning out pretty nice without it. But I really like gouache, so I'm not going to say that I put them in the same category, but they're similar enough where there's a little bit of overlap. A lot of times I was using gouache like watercolor, which kind of defeats the purpose, but nobody ever accused me of being smart. Hey, Nikki, how's it going? It's been a while. Hope you're doing well. Certainly more interesting. Yeah, for sure. About to play Death May Die, a miniatures Lovecraft game. Tonight we battle Yogg Sothoth, invade a ball to find the sorcerers. That sounds fantastic. And even death may die. That's cool. Yeah, I think, not to go back to the watercolor thing, but I'm really looking forward to it. I know I've mentioned it before, but many, many years ago, probably like 20 years ago, when I think it's called The Art of Hellboy. It's a Mignola art book, which, like everybody else, I like Mignola. Most of the stuff. Some stuff gets a little little too stylized for my taste, but my favorite stuff in that art book is actually his watercolor. He does a couple of watercolor paintings in there, which I just used to stare at. Really, really nice stuff. And it really it made me wonder why he didn't do that as his normal style. Because you can really see the difference in the two. And especially in an art book, it's back to back, and I don't know, there's really no comparison. So anyway, and of course you have like Dustin Wynn, and you don't have that many people actually working in watercolor, but whenever I see it for comic books, man, I love it. So yeah, next books I do are going to be in watercolor. It does present, well, not a problem, but being able to maintain sort of like the old color palette, it's definitely going to be more difficult. You know, you can't adhere that closely. It'll just be, you know, I'll start with a particular palette and then go from there. Everything will be derived from, you know, 6 colors or something like that. But it's not going to look like an old Marvel or DC book, that's for sure. I will post pics later. Cool. Yeah, I don't know how you learn the rules to so many games. I don't know if I'm just really bad at reading rules. That's probably the case. It would take me too long just to remember one set of rules, but man, it seems like you go through games all the time. Lovely designs. Thank you. Oh, unless you're talking about Death May Die. I was working on a secondary comic project. My main project is laid out, but I will be moving to work 11 by 17. Oh, nice. What's the subject matter? Yeah, the next book I'm doing after issue 4 is going to be with John's Longbox. I don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be a really nice change from Horace H. Hoover. Different stuff to draw. Still really things that I like to do. But I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know. If I do something different, will I forget how to draw a vacuum cleaner? No, the answer is no. After 130 or 40 pages of Horace H. Hoover, I will never, ever forget how to draw a vacuum cleaner. Or at least that thing on his head. Again, could or could not be a vacuum cleaner. Like when I'm in a retirement home and they put on the Love Boat and like the placemats where you eat has little crayons or something, I will be doodling a vacuum cleaner head. When you launch your next book, I invite you for another interview. Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. I was actually looking at a review of Horace H. Hoover. Technically, it was the first review I ever got because it was, as soon as I finished the first short story, I kind of shopped it around and showed it to people to get feedback. before getting published or anything like that. And there is an artist, his name is Walter Ostile. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He's a established artist, does like webtoons, paid webtoons guy. Huh, I think that is all jacked. Key. Anyway, this was years ago, probably 4 years ago, and he basically kind of put a word out. It's like, hey, if you want me to review your book, submit it, and I will do a YouTube review of it. So I submitted that first short story, and this is with the original color or cover. Some things changed. Anyway, he did this review of it, 4 years ago. I just looked at it again. And I'll be honest, like before that review, I just had I don't want to say I didn't have any confidence. I just didn't know like kind of where the comic stood. Sometimes it's really hard to pinpoint essentially where you're at skill-wise. You can show it to family and friends, but I don't know how useful that is, to be completely honest. You might have some very special family and friends, but for me, it's not that useful. So he was the first, objective, professional comic book creator to actually look at my story. And he was very complimentary. And he even said, art, story, plot, all that stuff is on point. I can totally see this being published by a major publisher. Except he had some issues with my lettering, which I ended up going and fixing. So, I think about that. Like, wow, I had somebody, I was lucky enough to have some professional look at my work, give me some feedback, and kind of give me the confidence. I'm like, oh, wow, he thinks it can get published. I'm going to send it out. I'm going to look for places to publish my book. In retrospect, the place I picked was not the right place, but whatever. That happens. Yeah, Walter Ostile. Again, he's something Shark. I can't remember offhand. Somebody might know him. I met your designs. The secondary project is a parody 6-page comic. My main project is a dark fantasy called Silver Road. Oh, cool. Yeah, parodies and satires, like, I think mini comics like that are like a perfect thing. I think some people are like, hey, I'm going to do a whole parody comic book that's 30 pages. I'm like, that's a lot for a joke, But yeah, 6 pages, that's a perfect size. Also, like reading. Like, you don't want to read a 30-page satire or parody of something. Generally, I would say. I was looking at What If anybody remembers those, the Marvel What Ifs. Not What Ifs. It's What The, which was like the parody of What If. And those were really fun. I really enjoyed those. I think the one I was looking at was... Oh, man. I'm going to mess it up, so I'm not going to talk about it. Maybe I'll pull it out one of these days. I only have a few of those. But the one I was thinking of is... it's like a takeoff of Kraven's Last Hunt. And... Oh, man. It's good. I think... Is Kraven a chicken? Or something like that? Because I think it's Spider-Ham. Except for Cerebus, that is a good long parody. Interesting. Yeah. I guess. The definition of, and I haven't read much Cerebus, to be honest. So I don't want to say anything. I don't have enough knowledge on that. There's this weird thing that happens where, like, how to describe this. If anybody knows the show Angel, I'm going to use this as an example because it's the first thing I thought of. There's a character, Giles? No. Wesley? He was like a watcher or something like that. I know this is sort of kind of a dumb example, but they introduce him as sort of a goof, kind of a klutz. But, 3 or 4 issues in, he's kind of a badass, shooting people. And I almost feel like at a certain point, even if you intend something to be a parody, after a while, it kind of morphs into something else. So like Horace H. Hoover, honestly, in the beginning, I was like, oh, he kind of makes me chuckle. I'm not saying he's a parody or anything like that, but, by the end, I don't know, I kind of love him. And to me, he's as cool as any other superhero investigator. Although it does become its own thing. Yeah. I'm on Church and State, which is the 4th telephone book. Yeah, it's something I need to do. I do need to read those. But like every other comic book fan, I have stacks and stacks of things. I'm also reading books too, so I try to fit them in together. I feel like I need to be reading a book as well. So I'm always reading some book. And right now I'm reading a history book, which, all of that stuff feeds into the writing. So whenever I sit down to write another story, it's just fodder. It's more data to kind of pull from. It's kind of like a history of, I hate this term, but the Dark Ages, right? We'll say from 400 to 480 to 1400. Some people call that the Dark Ages, which is kind of ludicrous, but how things get named and why, and there's a whole reason for that. When you live with your creation for a while, you get to know them well. Yeah, they just become something else. It's like, you meet somebody, a friend, for the first time, and maybe they come off as goofy and funny, and then you realize, oh, you know what? There's other aspects and qualities and characteristics, and if they were given, or if they were put in a particular scenario, this kind of goofy friend that I met might act kind of heroic. So it's kind of the same thing with characters that you write. Hey Crenshaw, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My stack isn't even that big, but it's still tough to get to. Yeah. I was listening to somebody today talk about current sort of reading trends for college kids, and they were talking about a professor, somebody from Columbia, and how, a really good school, they were having a problem getting students to keep up with the reading assignments, it was a book a week. And I'm thinking, a book a week? That's, in college, that's not a problem at all. I used to do that for my English classes. It was actually pretty fun. And there were times when I was ahead a book a week. Anyway, but people have a hard time keeping up with that now because they can't concentrate, a bunch of reasons. But, when you reach a certain age, things happen. And by things, I mean sleep. It comes quick. 1 minute you're reading about the fall of Rome and how the monks saved civilization, and the next, that book is hitting you in the face because you dozed off for a second. I'm not saying that happened to me. No. Yeah, of course that happens to me. As far as comic books, so I'm reading those, reading that history book. I'm still making my way through like a G.I. Joe compendium. I have a stack of Blue Beetle comics, which I'm really excited to get to. So my exposure to Blue Beetle is honestly just through Justice League International. I've always wanted to read the standalone stuff, but I just never did. Even though he was one of my favorite characters in Justice League. I mean, sort of the dynamic between him and Booster Gold, I think is some of the best written stuff. Then again, I did read that a long time ago. So until I go back and read it, we'll see. But I think I'm going to assume it still holds up. So as of right now, I'm looking at launching crowdfunder mid-September. So keep an eye out. Do audiobooks count? Unfortunately, they don't. I know, we want to find that cheat code. So here's my thing with audiobooks, and I know I've talked about it, but I only listen to audiobooks of books that I've already read because I just really don't pay attention to audiobooks. I think most people do. You have every intention of hanging on every word, but there's definitely something different about listening to something versus reading it. Now, you might be one of those people that listening actually makes you remember it more. But I would say that you have to at least tell people, yes, I'm listening to a book. And then that's okay. Just don't say you've read a book. The book police will be on you in a second. You know what? I would totally join the book police. Now that I think about it. Especially if the book police carried guns, man, I would totally do that. I don't know what they would give you tickets for. I concur. Audiobooks is listening, not reading. Yeah. But again, if you've read a book, I think listening to an audiobook is actually, it's pretty cool. Because, if you haven't read it in a long time, it's kind of a fun refresher without having to actually read the whole thing again. So I do recommend that. I mean, everybody has car trips and things. I'm about to embark on like a 10-hour car trip next week. So I'll be listening to a lot of things. That is a good face. Thank you. Yeah, the funny thing is, I'm sure you can tell, I actually redrew it. You know, I did these pencils a while ago, and when it's time to ink it, you got fresh eyes, very fresh eyes potentially at that point in time. So I could very quickly see, I'm like, that dude looks way too old to be doing this. So I just redrew over the blue line, and then I'll erase it like normal people do. I just finished listening to Blood Meridian. I do drywall, so I can often give all my attention to the story. That's cool. I heard that's a great book. Yeah, if you have like a solitary job, especially something like that, to me, I think traffic is difficult because, I mean, unless you're on like a long stretch of highway, I have a commute to and from work, and invariably I'm either almost dying, stuck in traffic and swearing. So it's like you just can't really focus on that book that much. In and out, basically. Me too. I joined the book police. I always joke that if my art career doesn't work out, I'll become a librarian or a bookshop clerk. I like being around books. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, I actually worked at my college library for a summer. So I went to school at Edinburgh University, and I didn't work when I was there at all. Mainly because Edinburgh was so small. There really weren't jobs available. They were really hard to get. I didn't have a car to drive, to the nearest town. So it was just difficult. So I think it was my last semester, I got a job at the library. And the Edinburgh Library is pretty cool. It's like 8 floors. It's a pretty cool library. And I walked in, there's a cart full of books, and they're like, reshelf these books. I'm like, okay. And I would just slowly push that cart around the library. They had there were no goals for me, like you have to finish the cart or this or that. It was just, they had virtually no expectations from me. And when an employer has no expectations from you, they don't get any. So most of the time I would just kind of walk around just as an excuse to look at books, go up on the 8th floor, kind of poke around, flip through some books, maybe shelf a couple of books, maybe. Because when I would bring the cart back down, they never checked. I just wheel it into the corner. I'd say, have a good one. They'd be like, thanks, Fabrizio. So for a short time, I was definitely on the library train. I was like, I need to be a librarian. This is the gig. Then you find out that you need a degree. And it's not even, is it a master's degree? I remember it being substantial. I had a fine art degree. And that was difficult enough as it was. So that dream was dashed. The one thing that I'm pretty excited about for issue 4 is, so I'm wrapping up sort of the longer story about the Smoke Man and sort of the story that kicked everything off. But I'm also going to be able to do another letters page, which, for those who have not read it, my letters page is actually another set of stories. So each letter is another piece of an epistolary. So you'll be able to essentially get the next chapter of another couple of stories in the letters page. I know that sounds a little confusing, but just think of each letter in the letters page as an epistolary. So the first 3 issues, each letters page corresponded to another essential story. Some of the stories, if you look closely, they are intertwined. I don't think anybody has brought that up. So I don't know if anybody's really looked closely at those stories. But I'm actually excited to just kind of continue those. I volunteered a lot in middle school and high school at my school's library. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I never did that. We had a pretty small library. I think it was just like the librarian. Yeah, a degree is history. I also have fine arts degree 2. Making books is a lot more fun. No doubt. Yeah, there's definitely something, like, some of us just get obsessed with like every part of the book. For me, it's it's like, wow, this beautifully bound, sweet smelling book. And I mean sweet as in spice. Really cool binding and paper, and it's got texture, and you're telling me it like could include this incredible story or piece of history. Just get obsessed with it. I mentioned before also that I'm going to start binding books, which I think would be fun. Again, all of this is after I finish Horace H. Hoover number 4. I can't add one more hobby or project before finishing. That is my vow to you, loyal readers and stalkers who email me every single day. When is Horace H. Hoover number 4? What is Horace H. Hoover number 4? Why does he wear a vacuum cleaner? It's frightening, honestly. I always thought they should make a book scented perfume. Oh, yeah. I haven't bought any. I have seen book scented candles, which I thought was fantastic. I have a hard time believing that they're going to smell like books, but hey, listen, if they're even putting any time towards that, I'll take it. I appreciate the effort, we'll put it that way. I remember this one time, it was a while ago, but I got like this cut on my cheek. Now, at my age, if you get a cut on your cheek, it's either a fight or a fall, or it's never anything glamorous. You know, I didn't rescue people from a burning building, nothing like that. But this was the least glamorous injury ever, because I went in to smell my book, and I just got a little too into it, and I got a paper cut right across my cheek. Now, admittedly, I did not volunteer the information that it was a paper cut. I just let people believe that, wow, Fabrizio's getting into some fights on the weekends. He must be a bruiser. I took a bookbinding class in college. It was fun. We got the book bug. Ha! The book fought back. It's like, stop smelling me. Calling HR. All right, I got to move around a little bit. That guy's getting... calling the book police. That's what the book police do. It's like, sir, we've had some complaints about some unauthorized book sniffing. You have to get written approval before you can do that. You know what's funny is, so I have Horace H. Hoover collected on Amazon. It's issues 1 through 3, and it's a really nice printing. Like, I was really surprised. I love the paper's really thin, great printing, all of the above, right? The first thing I did, like anything else, is I smelled the book. There's something about Amazon printing where it does not have like a traditional, well, not traditional, an expected smell. It smelled very different than any other sort of printing process that I had smelled before. This is sounding ludicrous, but hey, we're all human, right? Some of us like to smell books. It's bad if you smell an audiobook. Then you have a problem. Comedian WW, book police SVU. Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know what it was about the Amazon stuff. There's also there's a bad tangent right there. I got to get rid of that line. There's a book that I read by David Stewart, like an indie author, his YouTube channel, really, really cool stuff. Anyway, it's a fantasy book, and it's not a comic book. It's just a regular traditional prose book. Same deal. I smelled it a bunch, and I'm like, huh, this just doesn't have that printed. Now I know it's digital, but even digital has distinct smells that still, I don't know. All right, I'll stop talking about smelling books. I also like the smell of ballpoint pen on paper. Yeah, that's a good one. It smells like math class. So, since we're talking about smells, why not, right? I have an oddly good sense of smell, and you're thinking, what is wrong with Fabrizio? So, I bought a house. It's probably been 10 years, something like 10 years ago. And I'm going to do the shortened version of it, but bought a house. The people that lived before us had done some renovations. It looked like they did an okay job. I didn't think, it wasn't extreme. So I didn't think too much of, potentially what they got wrong. Anyway, long story short, I started smelling some very unpleasant smells in the house. And this went on for months. And I was the only person. We had family and friends and my wife. They're like, Fabrizio, you're nuts. There's nothing. I don't smell anything. I'm like, I'm telling you, there's just something off. Like, somewhere, something's going on in the house. We had plumbers, HVAC people, like you name it. And all I had to go on was a smell. That's it. A freaking smell. And every single time they'd be like, sir, thank you for paying me for this visit, but you have a problem. There's nothing wrong. I don't smell anything. Nobody else smells anything. Just light some candles or, just get over it. So anyway, this went on for, I think, 6-7 months maybe. Until one day, we found the source of the problem. They had installed some plumbing incorrectly and it caused some issues. But here I was, 7 months into this thing. Everybody thought I was completely nuts. And it's not like they didn't hold back. They told me, Fabrizio, you're crazy. You're just utterly insane. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I can smell it. And I found it. And we fixed it. So I feel like if I have a superpower, it is actually smelling. Probably the least useful superpower, but I have it nonetheless. I used to draw with ballpoint pen in my school. Yeah. Smell man. Now, the nice thing is that everybody that didn't believe me, everybody that called me crazy, they all apologized and said, you know what, Fabrizio, you were right. We're really sorry. No, that never happened. It was just quietly forgotten. Well, you'd make a good bloodhound to find missing people. Yeah, it's like dog. Well, maybe not dog level smells, but pretty good. What does this have to do with comics? I don't know. Not much. Well, I actually, after everything got solved, I actually did write and thumbnail out like a 10-page short story about a house. And there was basically a monster living under and inside the house, patent pending. And the person living there was the only person that could smell the monster. He didn't realize it was a monster until later, but I never finished it, of course. It was too on the nose. Wow, that was a pun. You can sniff out the story. Yeah, I just need a way to monetize my smelling ability. There's a webcomic called Rotten, and one of the characters could smell evil. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. In issue 2 of Horse H. Hoover, there is the library where they categorize books based on their smell. Which honestly originally was kind of just a funny concept to me. Just because I'm like, I like smelling books. What if there's a library that categorizes books by smell? Haha, that's funny. But then the more I thought about it, and the more I sort of came up with the history of the library and the monks that take care of the library, it became much more creepy. Hopefully. So even if initially, the seed of the idea is funny, it can definitely morph into something else. It's another example of doing the blue line, doing the pencils, printing out the blue line, and by the time you get to ink it, you just see problems, which is good and bad. It is good and bad. I mean, sometimes you're like, wow, I'm so glad I caught that. But then it just definitely makes things more difficult whenever you're trying to kind of get through things. Because now you're back to correcting the art instead of just sort of executing on the inks. I was going to go gray there, but it's a smaller drawing. It's a smaller character. So I would actually prefer to go just black. just easier to read. Yeah, we're almost at an hour. Thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate it. Streaming on Monday nights it's a nice way to start the week, get a head start on some stuff. Alrighty, just gonna finish up a few things, call it a day. Looks great, thank you. Definitely makes me want to work on my pages. Yeah, this may be an obvious thing, but I figure I'll tell it. It's something that really works for me is, speaking of audiobooks or TV shows or something, it's like I only watch or listen to or whatever a certain thing whenever I'm inking. So if I'm watching some sort of Netflix show, I make sure that I'm only doing it when I'm inking. So it's kind of a, you want to know what's going on in the Netflix show, then sit down and get your ass inking, If it's not enough that you want to make some progress, then I just sort of tie it to something else on top of it. So I have a couple TV shows that I only watch when I'm inking. I'm like, well, if I want to know what happens, I got to ink. All right, everybody. I think I'm good. Oh, man. I listen to stuff while I pencil too. Yeah, listening to music works, but sometimes having a show is nice. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it, everybody. I will keep everybody posted on the pages, but this is, like I said, 29 out of 38. So last chunk of pages. I'll be out of town for a week, but I'll come back, try to knock these out, and then we'll start a pre-launch page for issue 4. I will definitely be posting the cover of issue 4 maybe in a week or so. So that'll be nice, just to have a visual sort of representation of the final book. Not the final. The next book. All right. Thanks again, everybody. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good Monday night. Thanks a lot. Bye.